Okay, we're ready to go.
All right, call to order the May 20th, 2021 Public Works Committee meeting. If I can get a roll call.
Chairman Weggie.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
All members present.
Wonderful, thank you. Move on to the approval of the agenda. Any changes? If not, accept that by acclamation. Great. We have no announcements, appointments, proclamations, or recognitions. Move into citizen comment.
We have several citizens present, but no one with their hand raised.
I was expecting one person to speak, just as a heads up. I don't know if he's on or not. Maybe he's going to call in at the end. And that was about the chickens. Okay. All right. We'll move into a report of the committee chair and alderman. I'll go first. Again, want to wish everybody a happy Public Works Week. You know, after Engineers Week, this is the second most fun week of the year, in my opinion, of course. So, and I had a chance to hunt down the new trash truck in use on the west side of the city today to see that. So that's exciting to move on. That's all I have. Alderman Gould.
Did you run after the truck?
I don't really run. It's more of a saunter.
No report. Thank you.
All right. Steve?
No report.
Great. Nancy?
Just a quick thanks to Dan and his team. They're out grinding the sidewalks where they're uneven, and as a person who has broken a bone in her foot by rolling it on an uneven sidewalk, I applaud the work that you're doing to keep maintenance on those and keep us safe.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Okay. We'll move on to item 6, city administrator report, but the only item here is the future committee meetings. I don't know, Bull, if this is really your item or I take it.
You take it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll open the table to any comments from committee members on your feelings of continuing virtual, or if we want to go back in person.
In person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with in person as well. You know, I think it's important though to find out if there are citizens that are interested in the virtual, and so we can figure out any workarounds on that. But in person is preferred. Okay,
Nancy.
I agree, in person, and I don't know how difficult it is to do the current Zoom where people can comment from virtually, like we're doing for the Board of Aldermen. So as long as we're able to have citizen voice in the committee meetings as well as the full board meeting, I would think it'd be great to go back in person.
Okay. All right. So let's plan that we're going to go back in person, and you know we'll continue with the Zoom option. I will say that the thing I have liked about the virtual is that it gives our department heads and employees, you know, city employees, the opportunity to call in, and I think that lessens the burden on them in the evening instead of sitting. So, you know, I would be opening, if we have that capability, that would be something that we could continue to do and try that if that's what we want to do. Again, so, you know, because a lot of people just only meet for brief parts of the meeting.
Thank you so much. We will gear up for June and work with Kelly and Janet to make sure it mirrors what we're doing for the Board of Aldermen meeting. Okay.
And is that consistent, Bola, with what the other committees are doing?
You're the first committee that has taken this on.
Trailbreakers. Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 7, department reports. So we've got Public Works up first.
Yes, that's mine. Good evening. We have a couple different things to report on. So 2 different things on the same street. There's Rosalie Avenue Speed Cushion and Rosalie Avenue STP project. So the speed cushion, as you're aware, we ordered it. It should be here actually tomorrow. It's actually ahead of schedule. When we talked to TAPCO before, it was expected, you know, probably like late June, but I guess they picked up production. So, and then we're planning on doing that probably after we finish up Bridgeport to White, that trail system, or at least as far as we can go on it. And then we can skip over and use that as filler work. The Rosalie Avenue STP project, we're still waiting on the commitment of funds from MoDOT, which is the next step before we can go out for bids. So the only change that MoDOT had recently is that they no longer support decorative lights. So the ones like we have on Litzinger, if we want ones like that, we have to pay for the upcharge. So basically they'll pay for lights, but the way the lights are now, they have, what do I want to call it? The flutes, you know, the grooves that are on the sides, that's considered decorative. Without flutes, it would just be a circle, you know, just a cylinder. And then the finial on top, that's considered decorative too. But I don't want to go changing the style of lights, you know, different than what we have. So we can just pay the difference, which is less than 5,000. And this is on a project that's way over 400,000. So it's pretty insignificant. And we didn't pay anything for right of way. So we have leftover budget. We were able to squeeze in the project without acquiring easements at any cost. So I think it's a good thing. It'll look like the ones on Rose. They'll look like the ones on Litzinger. They're slightly different if you really pay attention to them, but they're very similar. I think if we went with smooth and something totally different, that would stick out from the rest of the system. And then the only other thing, streetlight related, I know we had some rain, so Reinhold's behind schedule, but we have those 5 lights in Brentwood Forest, and they could start as early as tomorrow, but I expect them not until Monday. But they'll start boring in the conduits for those 5 lights. You know, they marked utilities, they're ready to go. It's just a matter of the weather cooperating, which it should. Monday, Tuesday, shouldn't take them too long to do. And then the other lights, I finally got a hold. It's not on the agenda, but the ones in York Village on York Hills Drive, they're finally acknowledging that they're getting the wiring harnesses that were missed, and that'll connect the light to the control panel. And then we also have a brochure for batteries, which I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'm not 100% certain if the brochure and the batteries they sent match up, since they sent us AGM batteries, and I think they're like LFP or something like that. And the ones we have are 28 amp hours, and the ones that they specified were 50 amp hours. So again, I'm deferring to them. I said, well, I'm a civil engineer, not a double E, so I want you to tell me if it's going to work or not. I don't want to do anything that's going to damage it. So once we figure that out, then we'll get going on those again. And that's it.
Thanks, Dan. On the STP on Rosalie, are you still expecting to do that work this summer? Or
yes. Yeah. So
MoDOT.
basically, MoDOT said that as long as we're okay with the upcharge on the lights, or we have to go with decorative, I said, well, let's just go with the decorative. We'll pay the difference. And we can do it as an alternate too. So the way Horner and Schifrin will do it is the base bid will be the regular lights. The add alternate will be the decorative. So if it comes in crazy because of, you know, material costs, we'll at least know what we're being charged for the upcharge. But yeah, we hope to start bidding it in June and hopefully bring those bids back to you at the June meeting.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I just, I'm really not looking for a whole lot of approval or direction, but I would agree with your assessment of going with the uniform of the decorative lights. I mean, if nothing else, it doesn't create any unintended differences between the east and west part of our town that sometimes, you know, folks seem sensitive to. So let's try to continue with the decorative as much as we can, in my opinion.
Great. Steve or Nancy, any questions?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks, Dan. We'll move on to item 7B, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple quick things that I want to report within in board docs, but the first is the Richmond Heights membership process. You know, Bola kind of teased this at the Board of Alderman meeting. During this last process, the Heights stated that Brentwood needed to come up with a process to ensure that our residents are actually residents. And, you know, I think because we keep finding mistakes and we keep basically asking for $2,000 or $3,000 less, they're looking for a way for us to kind of verify that a little bit better. And what we currently do is we require that Brentwood residents take an occupancy permit over to Richmond Heights with an unpaid utility bill or a personal property tax. And so the two issues that come up with that is either one, the front desk staff at the Heights isn't verifying that information, because that should be pretty foolproof. The second, which is primarily what typically happens, is the monthly EFTs. Once you sign up for a monthly EFT, you go forever. That is kind of the bread and butter of fitness centers. We love EFTs. We love just getting that free money every month. And so either someone moves out and they forget that they actually have a Heights membership, or secondarily, they do know and they move to Rock Hill or somewhere else and they want to keep that membership rate because they're still using it. So we consider a number of options to combat this to help with what the Heights is asking for. And what we determine as a staff, the best thing to do is if someone wants to get a Heights membership, is to have them come and get a resident ID card, basically. We could do that through our membership pass system. We have a camera, we have a printer, we might need another one so we can do both upstairs and downstairs. But basically, we'd ask them to bring basically that information to us, the occupancy permit, and then their unpaid utility bill or personal property tax. And then we would print out a yearly annual membership card for them to take over the Heights when they renew. It's an extra step, which is something that is inconvenient for residents, but it would be the best way to do it. I've not talked to staff about that or talked to Lisa. I don't know if we could print out membership ID cards through MyGov and maybe they just go straight to planning, be able to do everything in planning, but we could figure that part out. So that is kind of, the second issue is still the monthly EFT, so, because that would still be an issue unless we require everyone has a monthly EFT, the Heights suspend their memberships until they come get a new resident ID card to prove that they're residents. So that is what we're recommending. The other thing is, that's basically what we're asked to do for the Heights. We could look at a whole different process if we wanted and do something almost like a reimbursement program. So if you go and you prove that you've taken a fitness class, and we could open it up. Maybe it's not just the Heights, maybe it's the Y, any Brentwood fitness program, and basically say, we will reimburse $100 a year, $150 a year, whatever, we could research that, bring that back to Public Works. And then that would be maybe a little bit easier process. They just go do whatever they want to do. And then we reimburse them the amount we say we'll reimburse them for. The good and bad of that is, we'll contain everything here at the center. The bad is that if we do that, we might lose resident rates at the Heights. Because they might see that as us trying to change the program. So I just throw that out there if that's something you want staff to take a longer look at and bring back in another Public Works Committee meeting.
Any comments from the committee? Yeah, Steve.
Eric, if you're doing a resident card and you're at the Heights with a family membership, do you have to have one then for every member of the family, or is it just like a primary? Was there paying the bill at the time?
My goal is to have one primary family card and that we could list the family members on there. But we haven't really gone that far into figuring it out yet. Our plan would, they asked for this process to be developed by July 1st, and then it'd be go into effect in our next brochure if we move forward with it. And that give us some time to kind of iron out some of those things. But my goal would be to have just one card so you don't have to have 8 cards if you have a big family.
What if somebody were to come in and just pay for the membership at our rec center and then you reimburse the Heights?
We could look into that. That wouldn't be, we could think about that option. It would be just the reverse of what we're doing. Yeah, I mean, we could do that. The only question is once they reimburse us, how we get them onto the memberships, because our 2 computer systems aren't tied into each other. But I can have a conversation with the Heights if that's a different avenue you want us to explore.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it simpler that, a 2-stage process. There may be people that really aren't interested in jumping through those hoops and may not participate.
I would agree, and I think it's the
only
thing. Yeah, I would agree, and I think the only thing it does is we'll reduce Heights memberships. I think this only hurts the Heights, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, Nancy?
Well, sort of along those lines, the having to go to planning and development and then going across the street to Parks and Rec seems really burdensome to try to.
I would agree.
So if there's a streamlined way to do that, that'd be something I would agree with, and I'm not sure why I have an echo.
The one thing we thought about, and again, I have to think or talk to Lisa is, would we have access to the occupancy permit data in MyGov? And maybe if we could do that from our location here, that might be a way to streamline it. We might need some training on it, but I think we could handle that.
Yeah, Jeff or Nancy, are you done? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm finished. I mean, I think this is a great benefit, but we end up paying for people who leave year after year. So it's burdensome as it is to come once a year and have to prove that you're a resident to get cheaper rates isn't that much to ask.
Yeah, I was going to echo those comments. I think we're not done yet with figuring out the best possible plan. The printed ID card, making people come in every year and having it expire sounds too many barriers. Just to do something that actually should be done probably on the Richmond Heights Park side. So hopefully we can work out another system like Alderman Lockmiller suggested.
We'll keep looking into it.
Yeah, and I'll just pile on there. I mean, that seems like too much for residents, honestly. I don't know, especially I could see somebody getting over there and then having to drive back, and just, I don't know, that just doesn't seem right. I mean, we have the same IT department as Richmond Heights. Maybe we could connect the systems over there and they could verify real time at the Heights.
Yeah, just by the way, the echo might be Lisa, your computer. I'm trying to figure out who might be unmuted. Let's see, is that better? Nope, still.
Weird.
So my second report is about senior programming. In 2017, the board approved the intergovernmental agreement for senior citizen recreation programming services. Basically, we had our senior programmer leave. The Heights still had a senior programmer, and it seemed silly to have two different cities programming. Since March of last year, the Heights hasn't done any type of senior programming. We have kind of taken that back over. You know, we start doing small things, virtual stuff. We're going to start easing our toes back in the water with some in-person stuff, but it was requested that we do some sort of senior programming during this time. And at this point, I think, you know, staff is in the position where they feel like we might as well just do it. And at this point, remove ourselves from that programming cooperative. The Heights hasn't given any indication when they might start programming again. Even now, they're doing some small things, but they've said that senior programming, special events, things like that are not on their radar.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is good. This is always kind of an issue. You know, it's a small number of residents that this serves, but I think it's an important one. So I'm in favor of doing this and continuing to do it.
So, will this need to go to the board for approval?
It should. It could be under city administrator report.
Nancy?
Have you spoken with Alderwoman O'Neill? She seems to have strong opinions about the quality of the senior programming.
Yeah, I think she'll be happy that we're taking it back on. We have talked to a number of the senior programming participants already about stuff they want to see. We'll make sure we reach out to her as well. But yeah, we're still kind of that strange time where we can't go full bore yet. We don't want to do trips yet, but we're in. One of the big things is lunch. We don't really want to do lunch, but we're basically going to cater lunches and bring people to the center. Try that as a kind of a good way to socially distance, but still get people together. So we're trying some different things that we hope will keep us going until we can get back to kind of regular programming.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Eric,
yeah.
Eric?
Do we need a vote to take that to the board?
Okay. We need a motion then from somebody. And the motion would be to rescind the intergovernmental agreement and pull the senior programming back over to Brentwood.
Correct.
Second.
So moved. Twice.
Good luck with that, Kelly.
Yeah, wait a minute, start over. Okay.
Did you get it?
I think Alderwoman Tice, did you make the motion and
That works.
Mark Miller?
Good enough.
You're second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye twice.
Aye.
All those
Thank you.
opposed? Great. All right, thanks, Eric. I think I know who the echo was now. All right, let's move on to planning and development, Lisa.
Good evening. I think all of our items tonight are under new business, so I have nothing additional to report at this time.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. And we'll move on to item D, the Sustainability Commission. Eric, I think you're taking this, and you're the source of the echo, by the way.
I apologize. I have no idea why. So just a real quick, just an update of what we did in April, which was Chairman Burkemper agreed to participate in the solar program yesterday. I heard he did a wonderful job, so we appreciate what he has done for us. And then we also completed our strategic planning exercise. The commission came up with a number of good ideas and options, but what the commission really finally agreed on was it'd be prudent to develop this city sustainability plan and take the rest of the year to kind of work on that while kind of working on two other priorities that they think could, low hanging fruit that we can knock out this year. And that was Green Dining Alliance and getting a formal sustainability page on the city's website. So what we're looking for is approval from this board, from the Public Works Committee to move forward with that. And then we'll start working on those three items.
Yeah, Jeff.
Are those initiatives within the budget?
I believe all of those are, I don't believe any of them will cost any money.
Oh, okay.
I'd say yes.
They are. I mean, there's $20,000 in the budget, so none of them, to my knowledge, require any expensive money so far. So, but if we have to spend money, we'll bring that back to Public Works and the Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we need to vote on that?
Technically, we've said that we need the Public Works to approve this this direction by the Sustainability Commission. So yes.
Okay, so a motion to what is it? You want to create a document that explain to me what
Sure.
website.
What the commission will do is spend this year developing the City of Brentwood Sustainability Plan, while also working on the Green Dining Alliance and formalizing or creating a formal sustainability page for the city's website.
All right, that what he said. A motion along those lines.
I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, we'll move on to item 8, old business. We got the Bridgeport to White. Dan, probably you.
Yes. Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. It's for informational purposes. Parks was nice enough to do the demolition work, so they cleared out the old asphalt. And then we did the grading and put down the first, I'd say probably like 7 cubic yards. So we basically transitioned at Bridgeport where the sidewalk kind of dead ended and became asphalt path, added a nice little concrete landing, ran concrete back towards the first tree, stopped short of it, because where that transition point is, we'll go with rubberway, which is the porous, flexible concrete, go past that tree, the second tree closer to white, and then transition back to concrete. So the only other thing we'll need, which I know Eric's working on, is coordinating that chain link fence needs to be shifted over slightly to the west so we can do the rest of our concrete work towards the White Avenue.
And I have spoken to the owners of that house. They're very agreeable about doing it. He has a couple other projects on some of his other properties. He thinks he'll be able to get to that in 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought if we had to, we would just stop, wait for them to do their work, and then we have the rubberway material. We still need a sidewalk repair at 9140 Pine. And then, of course, we have the speed cushion. We've got other stuff we can rotate in, you know, and then keep working on that path. We'll definitely get it done in June.
Great. Any questions? Yeah, Steve.
Hey, Dan, on that, the one on Pine, is the developer reimbursing us for that?
He's supposed to, yes. I've spoken with him. We're going to send an invoice. That way we get reimbursed for the materials, and then we'll put it in, you know, using our labor like we did before. So we'll get it the way we need it. I know that they're done with that home, best I can tell, and they've poured concrete for their driveway, and the concrete that they did remove that we had originally poured, they replaced it in kind. So now it's just the rubberway that needs to go in that area. But
Okay.
the sidewalk's passable, best I can tell.
All right, thank you.
Nancy or Jeff? Hey, Dan, this is probably late to ask this, but has the ADA coordinator looked at the Bridgeport, the white path, and given us a thumbs up on everything there?
We're going to have her take a look at, we actually have a slope measurement tool. So we measured the slopes on the forms before we poured. And then we'll have Terry come out there and take a look at it as well, just to give us her confirmation. But we feel confident that what we've done so far is fine. But we'll
Okay, and the fact that the driveway that it connects to has a higher slope, but that's okay because we're not touching that, right?
Correct. Yeah, what we thought we would do is, like, there's a slightly settled area of concrete towards white, and we would have the folks that do the sidewalk leveling take a look at that slab and see if we can possibly raise that up, since the slab's in good shape, but it's down maybe ½ an inch, just so that it's flush with the adjacent slab. So we'll see if we can have Woods take a look at that and give us a quote.
Okay.
So should stay consistent.
Okay. Thanks. All right, we're moving to item 9A. So Eric, I think this is you, the storm sewer and creek bank repair. Get you out of here.
It is. So what we're asking is for recommendation to work with Horn Schifrin on a storm sewer and creek bank repair professional services proposal. So last year we started noticing that the creek bank adjacent to Deer Creek and Brentwood Park was starting to fail. Basically, this is pretty important to Brentwood Park because it keeps the water from Deer Creek when Deer Creek rises from rushing into the park. And so in that last big rain event on March 18th, it finally failed completely. And so at this point, we are hoping to figure out an engineer solution to basically get a proper piping to get it back out to the creek. And if I can share my screen for just a second. And so this is Brentwood Park. It's right about here as it goes down to Deer Creek. And again, what the trouble is that we get the water rushing from Bremerton, and then also all the water from forest products comes underneath into this drainage through here and exits out into the park. And what happened on March 18th is you'll see basically it came up and it knocked over our fencing that we had. And what we determined is what happened is we have that little drainage pipe here that goes into a smaller drainage pipe, which is probably inaccurately sized. And then we have two of these pipes that, to be completely honest, were just a smaller pipe shoved into a bigger pipe. And so ultimately the water started seeping out of that, undermining the soil underneath, which is how the creek bank failed and was breached. So, and you kind of see, obviously this is something that the city had done in the past. It has that typical asphalt and concrete work that we used to dump in areas. So it's failed and we got to fix it. This is above our areas of expertise. We tried to talk to our city engineer and he just kind of looked at me and said, you better call someone else. So Horner Schifrin is one of our on-calls. So we'd like to use them. They've done a lot of water work for us in the past. It is $17,400. What we'll do is we'll pay for that in our parks capital account with savings, or we'll have to defer another project until 2021 if we can't get savings.
Yes, Steve.
I can't remember. Did we put that echo's bothering me. Savings away in stormwater?
I believe
maybe-
we continue to set aside about 70,000 in stormwater for stormwater projects that might come up. I'm looking at the budget book. And
I'm just wondering if the funds would be better to come out of that for this type of
Actually,
project.
it's even more than that. We have set aside, I want to say 150,000. We need to double check what that number is.
That's an excellent point, Alderman Lockmuir. I'm sorry I didn't think about that. We do have $50,000 budgeted in the stormwater line for this year. So we could use that line if the Public Works Committee is okay with it.
Well, I'll make a motion that to forward onto the board that the proposal from Horner and Schifrin for professional services for the Brentwood storm sewer and creek bank repair funds to come out of the reserve in the stormwater fund.
Okay. Great, we got a motion and a second from Alderman Gould. Any other discussion or questions? Great, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 9B. Thanks, Eric. Sanitation services, trash cans. Nothing but excitement in Public Works.
No, this one's mine. We were asked to take a look at providing trash cans. As you recall, currently we only provide recycling carts and recycling bins, and that's typically because we get a grant. So whenever we apply for that, it's easy to get some free money to put towards purchasing those. And not everyone recycles, so we don't have to provide those to each doorstep. So in this case, I took a look at, or attempted to take a look at what is out there in the market. The costs are up and down because of the cost of petroleum, but the last time we purchased 65-gallon high-density polyethylene carts, we were looking at roughly $43 a cart. Some of the typical sizes I put as attachments on here, so you'll see you can go down to as low as like a 25-gallon. Most of the industries, 32, 35, and then 64, 65, and then 94, 95. So your recycle cart, like a lot of you have, that's 64, 65 gallons, just to put it in perspective. So if we were to purchase those, you'd have a cart about that size for trash. I have Republic Services where I live, and I have a 95-gallon cart, and that's enough for us, to fill up all week, and usually there's room left over. So on the trash side, 64, 65 is probably not adequate for a family of four. You'd probably want the next bigger size. What I also did was look at what our comparators do, since University City and Kirkwood still have their own sanitation services. Of course, they charge their residents for trash services, and we don't. But if you're looking at them as a comparator, they provide, like Kirkwood is a 65-gallon trash cart and a 65-gallon recycle, and it's about $327 a year. They'll allow you to bump up the size of your trash cart, but it comes at an additional cost. So if you did that and had a 95-gallon trash and a 65-gallon recycle, you're looking at roughly $387 a year. University City, they typically provide like 90 to 96 gallon for both, and they bill, it's kind of strange, they bill in half-year increments. So theirs is $220.20 a year if you were to do that. And they do actually provide smaller carts because they said, especially empty nesters or people by themselves, they don't generate that much trash, so they don't have a need for a 95-gallon. So they'll go down to as low as, say, 60-gallon. The challenge for us, though, of course, would be Brentwood Forest. Since they have to provide their own receptacles now, what size would they pick? That's why I looked at what's the smallest commercial size that you can find. and it looks like it's 25 gallon. And the dimensions are on that submittal that I dropped in there as a file. I don't know if that's still too big. I see all kinds of sizes. That's why I threw together the memo and show pictures of, it kind of looks like the little Russian nesting dolls when you look and see some of these along the curb. There's a big one, there's a medium size and a baby size one. So this would standardize it such that you'd have carts with wheels, carts with hinged lids, but it comes at a pretty astronomical cost whenever you look at, you know, anywhere from $43 to $60 per cart. You're looking at anywhere from like $150 to a little over $200,000. So we don't have that budgeted now. I don't know if that's something that you'd want to entertain with future budgets or try to phase it in. Because if you bought these, you wouldn't be buying them year over year. A typical cart, they come with a 10-year warranty. You know, they've got UV inhibitors where you can leave them outside. The sun, it will degrade it over time, but it takes quite a while. You know, the cart I have is probably, you know, 15 years old, and I have, you know, only replaced it once. But they do last quite a while. The big problem is, where do you store it? You know, most single family folks probably can pull it behind the house, in a garage, but there is that question about Ward 4.
Dan, what was the motivation for this? I mean, I know Alderman Shelton asked for it, but do we understand what the benefit or what problem this is solving, or why this was being asked for? Is it just because Brentwood Forest is switching over to receptacles, you think?
I think partly that might be it. Also, we continue to have challenges with some of the residents who are still using trash bags. And then there are others who claim that because they have to walk down a flight of stairs, that they don't have, because they're of a certain age, they don't have the strength to manage that. So we thought, well, we'll bring this to the Public Works Committee, and perhaps you all can begin to have a discussion about it. Do it, not do it, explore it further. That's the genesis of it.
Yeah, Nancy.
So I have a question about the Brentwood Forest. So is the idea that we would buy uniform trash cans that then would be stored like outside the condos at Brentwood Forest, but they would all look the same, so it would look uniform? Or what's the
Well, now, because of the smaller size, it can be stored in their house. So right now, Brentwood Forest prohibits, and I think maybe Steve can speak to this. Don't want to put you on the spot, but
We are.
but if they have one of the bigger size carts, you know, like the 90-gallon carts, they don't have garages. They don't have space to store it outside unless they have a deck, and then they have to push it through, you know, their unit. And then depending on if they're on the first floor or if they're on the second, you know, down some flight of stairs. So basically just looking for convenience and to help them become more compliant with St. Louis County rules regarding that and Brentwood Forest rules. That's basically it.
Yeah, they've got a gambit of different issues over there, as Dan said, with people only having decks to store these things on, and they got to drag them through their house to take them down. The condo association doesn't like the idea of having these cans set up against the side of buildings. Some get left out there. It's a multifamily facility that should really have its own trash pickup, but it's what we've got, and I don't know how you address it with going to larger cans as far as that area of our town. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is obviously a Brentwood Forest thing to figure out. I thought they had spent quite a bit of time already discussing this over the past year and a half or more. I mean, I would agree with Alderman Lockmuller. It's very unique to that area, and it needs that, you know, a separate probably solution for than the whole city. I did have a question though on the Kirkwood and the University City pricing that you said. Are they charging that per month or per year, no matter if you, I mean, you get one, and then do you continue to pay that every year? Because I mean, to buy a trash receptacle like that, it's maybe $100 or more.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's actually considered part of your service. So like with me with Republic, you pay the annual amount, but if the cart breaks down, say a wheel falls off or the hinge pin comes apart, you just call them and they replace it. So essentially you're renting the cart as part of your service. So that's the way Kirkwood and University City does it too. If your cart breaks down because the city purchased it and it's part of your program, the city will replace it at no charge. So yes, you're paying, say $300 or so a year, but that $300 not only does it dispose of your trash and recycling, but it provides you that cart, which say it fails after 5 years, 10 years, you'll get another one. All these are, they have a serial number on them. We have serial numbers. If you ever get bored and look at your recycle card, there is a number on the front. We just don't record them because there's no sense in recording it. If you called and told me yours is broken, I'll bring you a new one to your doorstep and take the old one back here and recycle it. So, but with trash carts, you can get them hot stamped with a serial number too. So if somebody purchased one, or if we purchased it for them and assigned it to them, because that's the other thing I was afraid of. Well, what if we buy it, they move out and they take it with them? City just spent $40, $50 and they just walked away with it. Now I have to provide the next owner another cart. I don't think it'll be that expensive. I don't think there'd be that many people taking them with them, since a lot of people are longtime residents. The other choice would be, do you provide them just with one and then charge them for a second or a third? Currently, we don't break it down to the weeds like that. If you put 2 carts out by the curb, we pick them up. A lot of these cities charge you by the cart, me included. Like Republic will charge me an extra amount if I put 2 carts out each month instead of just one.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I have property in Richmond Heights, and same with, they have Republic and they provide the trash cans. And I think since we don't charge our residents for trash pickup, I mean, if there needs to be additional trash can program, it makes sense to make it a cost share type of situation, in my opinion, because it's kind of above and beyond that. So
thanks, Jeff. Nancy?
Is there any sort of, setting aside the Brentwood Forest issue, is there any, would it help the trash truck guys to have consistent trash cans? And is this something that, it's an option that you could buy it? Like, we could buy the cans and then have them delivered and you would have a nice can. I have one of the old black trash cans from 20 years ago when we first started in trash, and it is still in the basement and is in great shape. And I would imagine some people might like to buy a really significant sturdy trash can, and then just,
we do get a really good price when we do price these out, just with recycle carts. Again, $43 for, it was roughly 250 of them. If you were to go to the hardware store, you're going to pay way more than 43. I included that one little snippet to show that, they could charge you $80, $90 for something like that or more. And it would be nice, to go back to your question, it would help the trash drivers in the sense that you don't worry about a lid blowing off because the lid's attached. You don't worry about if they've put too much in it and it weighs more than the allowable weight because you have wheels. You're taking that burden off your back in the respect that you're able to push it over there. And the trash trucks have cart tippers. So all of these that I've looked at have a lifting bar. That's that little silver metal bar that's in the front. It hooks to the tipper, you hit the lever, and then the machine lifts up the cart, empties it, and drops it back down. So it would look better consistency wise, and it would help them. And if you ever did go to an automated fleet, they require recycle carts and trash carts. You can't put it in bags anymore. You must put it in a cart of some sort. But the cost share is actually a good idea, and it would be a one-time thing. And if they need it later, well, then I guess they'd have to pay again.
Well, it's certainly a broader issue than I think what you were initially proposing, but if that might be something we could talk about.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, so
Then you, Steve. So you,
If we were to do something like that on those orders, can you place orders? Do we have to place a big order and inventory them, and then if people don't buy them, you know, or can we place them on demand? Say we're going to do a cost share program and then announce it and have people sign up, then we're only placing the ones that get ordered.
Yeah, the storage would be the challenge, and I thought, well, we can store roughly 300-400 in the shop without any issue because these nest together. When you purchase them, you know, the wheels and axles are shipped separately or tossed inside one of the carts. So, and they're shrink wrapped together. So we would just push them off to the side. You know, since we don't have a whole lot of extra areas to go, it'd have to be like maybe City Hall and the garage bays, but we're not going to fit, you know, 3,000 of them in, or you'd have to phase them in. You wouldn't have to necessarily place all of the order. You could phase it, you know, throughout the year where maybe it's 500, 600, and you just do an RFP for the amount that you want in total, and then have the manufacturer produce them in waves. You know, that might be the way to go. Like you're saying, basically on demand. You know, you get a few hundred, you distribute them. If you need a few hundred more, you know, tell them to go ahead and manufacture that wave of carts.
Okay.
That way you're not trying to store, you know, thousands of them at once. And
yeah, that seems excessive use of space that we probably need for other things too. So
yeah, because the other question I thought was, well, what happens if we did do this? What do you do with yours if it's in good shape? I guess you just hang on to it. I mean, I wouldn't want people just to start throwing away trash carts for no reason. You know, maybe you use it for yard waste. You just label it yard waste and you no longer use it for trash, you know, if you clean it out.
Another consideration that I have is we haven't really surveyed our residents. We do have the ability
Oh, yeah.
to do some of these surveys on the website. So if you have interest in that to gauge whether there's a true demand for this, we could also survey the residents.
Mark.
yeah, Steve, you had a.
Yeah, I got stuck behind the trash truck in Webster, and it was one that had the arm where the guys never get out of the truck. And
Right.
the thing, it was, all the cans are lined up like they're supposed to be, like little soldiers, and this thing just pulls up, dumps it, dumps it, dumps it. And I know we've already rushed in because we had to get a new trash truck, but if we went this route, I would be wanting to make sure we got those type of containers. And so hopefully the next truck would be one of those trucks that could grab that container without a guy jumping out of the cab, running down the street, crossing traffic, dumping the thing himself, picking up plastic bags. It was just such an efficient looking way of collecting trash that, you know, I think moving forward, if we're going to always do this for the citizens, the most effective way to do it is, you know, something like that. So I'd want to go with containers that would someday maybe be able to be picked up in that fashion. Thanks. That's all I had.
Thanks, Steve. I'll give my opinion. I'm still trying to understand what problem this solves. I mean, Steve has a really good point. If we're going to be changing technology and you need standardized cans, and that does make sense to me, but that seems like a much bigger conversation. I just, it doesn't seem right to me that Brentwood gets into the trash can dispersing business for the entire town. I don't know, something doesn't seem right about this to me personally.
Well, and also, Brandon, we're kind of inching our way into getting back involved in the Brentwood Forest situation. And
yeah.
I think we kind of walked away from that. Well, that's probably not the right term, but it was really in their hands to try to figure this all out. And I think we're, you know, all respect to Jack just getting on the board, but I think we're kind of slowly getting dragged back into that situation. We need to run from that.
So I'm not hearing any motions to proceed with this. Somebody wants to correct me. Okay. All right. So I don't think we're hearing any action requested to move forward on this. All right. We'll move on to item 9C, the school district to vacate right away. the McGrath site.
I'll go ahead and take that one. As you're all aware of, it was, I think, at the April 19th board meeting this past year, the board had approved the site plan and curb cut modifications for the McGrath Elementary School project. So again, I know you're all familiar with the school project. This is kind of, this is on here to vacate an easement tonight that actually runs through the property. It's been that way for a long time. And it's actually it's a 15-foot wide alley that was platted many years ago. And the location of this 15-foot wide alley is actually on the parking lot, the existing parking lot for St. Clair's, for McGrath School. So this request is on here because in order to vacate that, it does require an ordinance from the board. I really feel though, like this is just kind of something just to kind of clean up the property. The other thing that the Brentwood School District has been working with is that the school site is also on 3 separate parcels. And so also included, but really isn't anything that the board has to take action on. But at the same time, if the board would go ahead and vacate that existing alleyway on the property, then also they would take the plat to do a boundary adjustment and to consolidate all 3 parcels into 1 parcel. So again, I think both of these are just really kind of to clean things up. And as I said, they've been in use by the Brentwood School District for a long time. And so again, the only action that really is needed from the Public Works Committee is a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen for the ordinance to vacate the 15-foot wide alley on the McGrath School property.
I will take Lisa's words and turn that into a motion.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yeah, Nancy.
So I have a related question about the alley that goes to the west. What's the status of that? Is that's still with the city attorney? The part of this alley between St. Clair and Park Ridge? Does anyone know?
I think that was kind of an Eric's.
I think it's an Eric thing and he's gone. I didn't know if you knew, Lisa.
Yeah, I believe though we've, Eric worked with the city attorney, so we knew how to approach everything. Dan, I know that him and I a draft letter was given to us by Eric to just kind of review. And I believe it was around this time period that letters were going to start going out to the adjoining property owners, letting them know what was anticipated.
Yeah, that's the last I remember is in his email, he was going to send those out and the utilities would need to be notified because there is Ameren there and they're not going to, vacate their rights to be there because there's existing overhead electric.
Okay.
I just heard from Eric and he said the letters are being mailed next week.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I get a lot of questions about that. Thank you.
Okay.
And Lisa, on the school one, then if we vacate, we pass that ordinance, all cost is borne by the school for the plat redo and everything. So we don't actually imply any costs, kind of like the next one I know explicitly states that, right?
Right. And in fact, all those documents were prepared by the school district's engineer with the idea that this would get approved by the board. So all of those have been done at their expense. And once approval from the board, they would be ready to go over and record everything.
Okay. Steve or Jeff, any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay. I assume we can just do this by voice vote. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Lisa, you again on 9D, the Gregory request?
Yes. So we had, our department received a call from Kate Gregory and her husband, Zach. They own and reside at 19 Middlesex. And this started a few months ago. Kate and her husband would like to construct a detached garage on their property. They purchased the property, I believe, back in 2016. And when they started looking into building the detached garage and what would be required, it was then realized when they started to do a survey plat of the property that there are existing easements that run through the property. So again, all the handouts I think have been loaded onto board docs, but so what it is actually 2 existing easements. And why there's 2, again, commonly what they would do when they would plat subdivisions And still to this day, you have easements that are recorded that usually run along the rear property lines for drainage and for utility providers to use. So again, when this subdivision, which is the, can't even think of the subdivisions right now. It's a combination of two. It's both the McKnight Ridge subdivision as well as the York Village Woodlands First Edition subdivision. So when those were platted, they had easements that ran along the rear property lines. Over time though, and I didn't realize this so much, but there's been a lot of different boundary adjustments made for lots in York subdivision and in the private subdivisions over there. And in the case with 19 Middlesex, this lot was actually extended and some of the property was sold that was part of the McKnight Ridge subdivision. And so they bought a portion of that lot in the back that was in the separate subdivision. And so it made their lot larger, but what it also did was it brought all those existing easements onto this lot. So they're all located in the rear yard, but not along the rear property line anymore. They actually traverse kind of in the middle of the rear yard. So it definitely would be an encumbrance in order to do a detached garage. So knowing this, we consulted with the city attorney, and Kate did a great job kind of doing her own research and getting some legal opinions on things. But everybody, it seemed like all the legal opinions concluded the same. And that was that it probably was not in the best interest to vacate these easements, but rather that way you could always preserve the city or even the utility companies to use these easements in the future, but rather use a mechanism, and it's really called like a license, which again keeps the easement in place, but it grants the couple permission to go ahead and put improvements into this easement. So that's kind of where we're at with things. Kate, actually she has been in this meeting here. So if we need to refer to her, but she went to the individual utility providers. And so she's talked to all of them and she's more or less got these releases. But again, except for just one, which was the cable company, the rest all had provided just these, kind of the license arrangement to allow them to still use the easement. So, and what we got from our city attorney was to do a similar situation. And Kevin pointed out that the MSD document is probably closest to what we could possibly draft if, again, the Public Works Committee and even the board was even inclined to entertain this. So, there's pros and cons to this, and but it starts with the discussion and just to kind of put this on the table. So I can certainly answer any questions. There really isn't anything that I've come into in the 30 years that I've been doing this, but so yeah, it's open for discussion. If you have any questions, I'll certainly try to answer those for you.
Yeah, Steve.
Lisa, I'm looking at the York Village Woodlands document. So does that easement extend along all those properties and back?
Yes.
Okay.
So this could be an existing situation for other lots in these two subdivisions. Again, wherever there's been shifts in boundary adjustments for these parcels.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy?
Is there a reason not to allow this? I mean, they've gone to all the work to go to the utilities. The utilities make it really clear that if they need to get in there and they damage the garage, it's the homeowner's issue. I don't see what precedent. I mean, I could see it setting a precedent, but I guess I'm kind of curious. If you haven't run across it in 30 years, I'm curious what precedent we might be.
Well, I think it's very unusual that someone would want to take the risk. I mean, I've seen it for putting up fences and, very modest improvements, but not really for a whole new structure. I guess that's what I meant by I hadn't really run across it before. So if someone's willing to take the risk, that is one thing, but then the situation is going to remain. So what I see possibly happening is if this family would ever need to put the house on the market and relocate, this license, all these licenses would be recorded over at the county, so it should show up in title work. But nevertheless, I mean, I do think it could definitely impact maybe in the future going to a lender and, you know, getting the financing to purchase the property, because it is somewhat still a clouded title when you have the structure that's built right over an easement, where again, there's no guarantees that it maybe would not have to be disturbed at some point. So
is this something that has been through the Board of Adjustment, or in order to do this, or like for the title that we actually had something?
Yeah, no, I think, again, the lot is large because it increased into the other subdivision. So just, I mean, they haven't done a lot of design yet, or layout for this garage, just trying to get through this step. But I guess what I would say is there is quite a bit of surface area to work with back there. So I don't see that it would require any type of variances. It looks like they would have plenty of land to work with. And it being placed on an easement has nothing to do with zoning requirements and being able to meet setbacks. We don't have setbacks like from easements or anything. It still would just remain that our zoning requirements or setbacks from the property lines.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with Nancy sort of here. I think that, you know, the risk is, as long as there's no risk on the city's behalf, I think the risk is in the homeowners, and if they've done all the work and they choose to, I mean, are we talking about they're building over the entire easement, or just like a portion of it that it might hang over? And again, that's probably not even relevant to our discussion, whether or not we should approve this or not. It's more of a, as long as the city itself isn't liable for any future issues, you know, I'm inclined to approve it. You know.
And that is why the city attorney kind of pointed us in this direction about doing the license, because the original plat and the language, the way it was written, made it pretty clear again that it was not only for the city of Brentwood, but for use for any utilities. So instead of just vacating it, this is a way to still make sure that the utilities are still protected and that the rights, if you will, are preserved. So this is why he thought that this was a better option than still trying to vacate the easement.
But Lisa, there's no utilities in there now, correct? So it would just be the potential future.
So there is Ameren right now. And now we would not necessarily, since again, it's Ameren, it's not the city, we would not dictate if that utility line back there for the power would have to change or anything. But I do believe that when the residents went and talked to Ameren, they may have had some discussions that they would have to consider burying that. But even if it was still buried in the easement, it still means that the structure would be on top of it. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a requirement of Ameren that they would have to go underground with that or not.
Okay, so we're looking for, if we do want to go with the licensing route, I think we're looking for a motion to accept the recommendation from the city attorney.
If that's, yeah, I'll make the motion that we allow the easement and keep license of it per the city attorney.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions?
Who made the second?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, we are moving on to item 9E, the chickens. Chickens, trash cans.
Can't get any better, can it?
Can't get any better. Yeah.
This is your
All
kind
right.
of thing, Brandon.
Lisa, is this you too?
Sure, go ahead and take this one. This one should be a rather simple one, I think. So actually, I would say probably about 3 years ago, McGrath Elementary had wanted a small chicken coop at their site, and I actually had approved it. And the chickens went away. I'm not sure if the chickens are really back or not, and I doubt if they'll remain with all the construction that will be happening for several years. So the chickens probably will not be there. I'll have to find a new home. But then there was a chicken coop that was, and chickens were brought into the high school. And they've actually been there for a while. And they, I guess with different teachers, administrators, and so forth, it wasn't quite clear to them that they would have needed to come in and get a permit. And the chickens, I would say, were probably discovered on the high school property because the coop had been moved several times because of the current construction over at that site. And so that's kind of when more attention was drawn to it. So that, again, the high school did not have the permit. I actually I wrote that chicken ordinance back in 2013 when I was just filling in for somebody here with the city. And I know it's been pointed out now to me that, well, can the school have the chickens or not? Because how the ordinance was written is it says single family residence. But the way it was written, I think that there really was, and again, my mind's going back to having worked on that several years ago. I really think the intent was to allow chickens in single family districts. So the idea is that you wouldn't allow them in multifamily areas or in residential properties that are maybe there is a planned development or UD, such as the villas and projects like that. So it really was supposed to be for single family districts. So I think it's a little bit of a technicality, just to probably make it clear though and clean it up. We could go ahead and just change the code, and I think it's a pretty easy change or insertion, and it would be in chapter 210 under the animals and fowl chapter. And so again, instead of where it reads where it just says single family residents, have single family districts. And so I really went through scenarios of who else could ask for chickens in single family districts, the schools, and I really couldn't come up with anyone else except for other single family homes. So I guess I'm kind of wanting to know if first of all, if it's okay to still issue the permit to the high school, and then again, for the technicality to be cleaned up in the code. The school district would have to abide of all the other requirements or regulations in this chapter. And so that's where we're at. We've got an application now from the high school. And so I just need to know if they can keep the chickens until the technicality gets fixed, or if you want to look at the whole code again, I'm not sure. So
I think we lost Brandon.
Yeah, he said his internet's down. So, but he said to keep, I asked if I should stop Lisa, and he said no. So I don't know if we can keep the discussion. If we can keep the discussion going without a chair, I will. I'll say I'm certainly inclined to make this change. I have had some concern from a resident with the old high school chicken coop. I know they have a newer one now, but she's expressed concern about rats, and so I told her that I would come to the meeting tonight and ask about that. I don't know if you have had that complaint from other areas. About near people who have coops, if that's been an issue in the city.
Well, I haven't, and with the high school property, I haven't received any other complaints. Again, I can't really say for sure how long they've been there, but definitely they became more visible when the coop was a little bit more mobile and got moved around. But I have not been back there myself, but someone else took photographs, so I know what everything looks like, what the current conditions are. And the property looks like, I mean, it's cleaned up and everything. It's also where they have a little bit of garden plots and things like that. It's all part of their egg department. And so I don't think that the school having the 6 chickens and having raised garden beds, and again, if it's kept in the condition that it is, would cause any more problems or any problems that, again, if it was issued to a single family residence. So, but
That's
no,
great.
I haven't received any other
Okay,
complaints.
well, thank you. And then Brandon just texted me. He's on the phone only. So he's the phone number that ends in
413.
Yeah. So thank you, Lisa. And yeah, I'm in support of it. And I would just go on record thanking the high school for taking down the other coop and having this nicer structure for the chickens now.
So Lisa, does this mean that you came to us dealing with chickens and you're leaving us dealing with chickens?
I never thought of it from that perspective, but I guess that's correct. So that's quite insightful. Yeah, I'm going to become the chicken expert before too long.
Well, it's good to have you all that time. I support what Nancy. That's a motion to.
It was.
Okay, I'll second that.
Hey, this is Brandon. I don't know if you can hear me. What was the motion to accept the change?
Yes, that was my motion.
Yeah,
And we can hear you.
Allow for
Okay.
the high school to have the permit and then accept the change to the code.
Great. So we have a motion and a second, and I'll just say I went over and looked at it today too, and I think it looks okay, and I mean I think that's a good thing for the school to be doing. So I'm fully in support of that as well. Any other comments or questions?
Nope. Sorry, you can't see our
Okay.
head.
Nope. Can't see anything. I don't know what's going on over here. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, great. So high school gets their chickens. All right, we'll move on to item 9F. So this is one that I asked to put on the agenda. I think this is in the vein of, remember we had that visioning exercise late last year about kind of the changes we expect to see coming with Brentwood Bound in the future. Part of it was, you know, Lisa and Steve were going to go off and take a look at all of our permit fees and all our fees. You know, and with the changes that we're going to see in the department coming up, it just seemed like a good idea to revisit using county code enforcement instead of internal, because we're going to be hiring new inspector to backfill Steve, kind of. I know they're interviewing for somebody right now based on the last entry. And so in board docs, there's 2 attachments. The first is a really cool matrix. If you pull that up, it shows all the municipalities in St. Louis County and what types of permits are handled by the county. I think that's a really nice one-sheet view of what different counties are, or different municipalities are using. And then the other thing is, you know, I've kind of gotten the sense that the permits are increasing. So I went back through the last 3 months to see how many permits the city was releasing. And then I compared that to the same 3-month period in 2019. I didn't do 2020 because of coronavirus. And I saw that there was, you know, a 42% increase in the permits. And I'd be curious if Lisa feels that is true, or if we're seeing an uptick. And really my thought here is, you know, maybe this is something we should consider doing because we have a finite number of inspectors. And, you know, if there is a big surge and we see an increase in construction, which we would expect to in Brentwood Bound, is going to the county something we should think about doing to be able to respond to that. And to me, it really comes down to consistency and response to people that need these permits. So that's kind of the background. And I view this as just kind of an initial conversation with the board to see if this is something we would want to pursue and tease out further. Maybe we wait for Lisa's replacement to be in before we really pick this up. But I'd love to hear the board's thoughts on it.
So,
and you'll have to just speak up.
Yeah. So Brandon, are you thinking that it would be outsourcing some of the permit requests and still handling others in-house with staff, or outsourcing all of them? What's the thought?
You know, Jeff, I don't really have any, I don't have any thoughts. I mean, I don't know. We certainly have inspectors now, and this is not doing this to reduce headcount. I think it's just more to be more responsive. So it could very well be that we make a, you know, an intelligent decision about what would make the most sense to outsource, or what we see the most variability in. Again, I'm thinking of, you know, potentially 20 commercial businesses coming in on Manchester in the future. You know, are we going to be able to staff to handle that? And I see that, you know, building permits are not differentiated between residential and commercial, so maybe you can't slice it and dice it that way. You know, with us being on the 2018 building code, I'm not sure where the county is. Maybe that doesn't make sense that they expected that. So I think it's more like figuring out where this potentially does make sense.
Alderman Wegge, you just mentioned something really insightful about what ICC code the county is on versus us. And Lisa and I had a discussion about that today. So Lisa, do you want to share your thoughts on that with the committee?
Sure. So my understanding, and I don't want to say anything unless I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about and have checked the facts, but my understanding with other communities that have gone with the county is that, well, and it's evidenced here by your meeting documents, and you see that there's this adoption of codes. So the idea is that you do have to be, the community that they're serving or delivering services to have to be on the same codes that they're currently on. So I don't think that matches right now. I believe they're on 2015, which I think they adopted in 2019. And then we adopted the 2018 codes in 2019. That I do think if you're, and again, I'm not weighing in on this. I am not here to make a recommendation. But I do definitely think that that is one really key consideration. We worked really hard to get to those 2018 codes and get those adopted. So if we would have to move back, that's obviously the direction I don't think we went ahead is back instead of forward. And why I say that also is because it heavily impacts your ISO ratings. And the reason why we did so well with improving our ISO rating was the adoption of those 2018 codes. So this is just preliminary discussion. I'll leave it at that. But I definitely, like Bola said, I definitely think that does need to be a consideration as you.
Yeah, Steve.
And Lisa, along those lines, you know, we worked real hard on the stormwater runoff and best practices. If the county has a different plan for addressing those issues, then we would be stuck with the way they want to see it done. Is that right?
Maybe or maybe not. Again, I think it would be too premature to say what the impact would be. I don't even quite frankly know when they talk about a land disturbance code as one of the services they provide. I don't know what's all in that. And I don't know if that would include addressing stormwater and drainage issues. So I don't know if there's a way to still continue on the path. And again, it depends what services you would possibly decide to contract out. If you were looking at mechanical, electric, and plumbing, which I think from the matrix that Brandon had loaded in here, there's some communities that just do MEPs with the county. So therefore, I don't think that there would be any impact with that. But once you would get into having them do the residential construction inspections, then yes, potentially, you know, it may conflict with something that we're doing with our stormwater infill development permit.
And I'm just asking this because I really don't know. And maybe I should, but so in a day of one of our inspectors, could they be going over and looking at a resident's deck and then the next day be up at the hotel looking at the plumbing and wiring up there? Is that the spread of what an inspector does in Brentwood?
The way our current positions are written and the way they are staffed right now, we have 2 multidisciplinary inspectors. So there is definitely both residential and commercial work that's part of that. I will say too that looking at kind of starting to divide some of this and contract some of it out, I do also want to make the point that when someone goes out, an inspector goes out to do his inspection, we always see, like, even if they haven't called in, because you've got separate contractors on a project, and we're always proactive, and we try, you know, to still say, are there any other inspections that somebody else is going to be calling in? We're going to line them up. So we try our best to make sure that that hasn't been forgotten on the contractor side of it. So we may go out and cluster and do 3 or 4 of these inspections at one time. And that's pretty huge if you can hit, you know, the MEP, whether it's just the rough-ins or the finals with the entire project where, and so again, please don't think I'm weighing in on this at all, but I'm just trying to think of, you know, different things to really look at. The processes are a little different. I think that's actually been an advantage where we've been able, you know, to provide that service and be able to cluster inspections like that, because otherwise, you know, they're waiting for 3 different inspectors maybe to show up and conduct an inspection. So.
Brandon, I really like the matrix that you put on here, and I kind of support maybe looking into this over a few meetings, but I'd kind of like to narrow this down to maybe our comparator cities, because I tried to pull a few of them out of here, and they kind of like to stick to their own, it looks like their own codes and residential, you know, occupancies and that type of thing, as far as I could tell. But I think if we just pulled those out and maybe kind of get out of the weeds of every municipality here and see how the comparators do theirs.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Steve. And I had that thought. And this matrix comes from the county website, by the way. But I did think about slicing it with our comparators as just to see where they are.
Yeah.
Nancy, you had a question?
I do. It's sort of along what Steve brought up. So the enforcement of commercial versus residential, are there breakdowns in those codes that we've just recently approved, residential versus commercial? Like, how does that even break down for what we have written in our code, and then what the 2018, help me out, 2018
code revisions.
Code revisions.
Yeah,
do those apply to both commercial and residential?
There are separate code books. So one is we refer to as the IRC, which is the International Residential Code. And then there's the IBC, which is the International Building Code. So that also that's the commercial.
So when we approved that, we did both of them at once.
Right, along with mechanical code, energy code, electrical, plumbing codes, the NFPA, which is your fire safety. But yeah, all of them. I might have forgotten 1 or 2, but right. Yeah.
So they look at all that collectively, whether it's commercial or all the trades kind of come.
Right, and I don't
trades at the same time, or code changes at the same time.
Kind of in my experience, I mean, I don't see, and it wouldn't even make any sense. Like, I don't see a community where they divide up and they're on the 2018 IRC, but the 2015 IBC. When communities or counties pass these, I mean, they're more or less passing just the whole suite of codes. But then again, there's always the options to accept certain things out of every code book if a community would desire to do that.
Thank you.
For the longest time, we were waiting for St. Louis County to adopt, the more recent code. And when it seemed like that wasn't going to happen, or that there was a significant slowdown to it, was when Lisa and her team took the lead to just go ahead and update to the most recent one that we could. And that was the 2018.
Jeff, did you have a question?
I mean, I think, like Steve said, I think it's going to require a little more slicing and dicing and trying to really get into the weeds to see if this is going to, I think we have to be clear on what this is trying to solve. If this is trying to make it more efficient for our inspectors to be able to get to job sites that need quick inspections, and outsource things that really put a burden on their time, then I think that would be an interesting conversation or discussion to try to figure out. I think we also have to be careful about, do we take certain job requirements away from our inspectors that maybe then don't attract us the top quality inspectors because they're doing, smaller jobs or menial kind of task while the county does the pro stuff, right? So I think we have to be real cognizant of what message we're sending and what problems we're solving. I'm also interested in, okay, what are the differences in costs per permit, from what we charge to what the county charges. And so there's a lot of layers to this that I think we have to kind of distill down to figure out the right path. I know that didn't clear up anything. So.
Nope. Yeah, Steve.
And I think it would be good to bring in some, I guess you call them stakeholders. So I know we've got guys here in Brentwood that live and work in different trades. And just, they've done jobs here in Brentwood, dealt with our inspectors. Maybe they've done things elsewhere in the county or in other municipalities, and get a feel for what they run into. I mean, they should have a voice in this too, I think. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. I mean, I've been having informal conversations with some of them, just to mostly just to see if this is just a bad idea to even bring up. If somebody said, the county is terrible, and like, my God, and again, paraphrasing, but my sense is, everybody's pretty happy with the county. They like the consistency of it because they know kind of exactly what they're going to get. Whereas they're dealing with up to 200 municipalities, which are slightly different sometimes. So I didn't hear any negative about Brentwood necessarily. I mean, I'm curious. So, I know we're bringing a new inspector on maybe pretty soon. What's our plan for that additional, because we still have an additional vacancy we would need to fill even after we do that, right? So are we going to go out and try and hire another inspector? How long did it take us to find somebody? I mean, a lot of people are having issues finding people right now. Is this an opportunity where we could have a cost benefit analysis with some assumptions on, again, like, we have 4 inspectors, right, total. So take 1/4 of the cost and just kind of get a model of, like, would this save us money? Would it cost us money? What would the benefit be? And start fleshing this out.
So, every time there's a vacancy, there is an opportunity to take a look at that job description and identify some of the challenges we've had and try to bridge that gap. So you always are not too pleased, to lose great talent. And I believe it's a loss to see the city, however. And the same applies to Steve Muskoff, the city's building official. But we have been successful through the recruitment process, and Lisa undertook this. We have made a job offer to an individual who will become the city's building official, and he has over 30 years in the trade. So we're looking forward to him starting. So it's also an opportunity to get that person's perspective. So that position will be filled. We just started the recruitment process for the planning development director, and we're getting some good applications so far, but we do still have the code enforcement inspector vacancy. And I believe that in talking with Steve and another individual, instead of filling that position with a full-time position, we'll be able to bring in 2 part-time individuals to help us bridge the gap. We're in the growing season, it's raining, to address some of the code enforcement issues around tall weeds and grass, home structure and things like that. So I see that more as an operational something that we're looking at. However, if this committee wants to take that on, absolutely. But we're already thinking about how we bridge that gap.
Thanks, Bola. And then is it worth, I know you put some information from the county person that talks about this, asking them what the impact of different code revisions is. I mean, maybe they're open to other, inspecting the multiple code bases. I don't know if they do that or not, but.
We'll be at the next meeting. So definitely, as you all continue the discussion, you'll have an opportunity to engage him a little bit more.
Okay. And so have we asked him to come? Maybe that was in the.
He will be next meeting.
Okay. All right, so I don't think any motion or action is necessary. I mean, I view this as the beginning of the conversation, and I completely agree with you, Jeff. We have to understand what problem this is solving, what the benefit is, and if there isn't one, then it's not worth doing, right? Okay, moving on to item 10A, citizen comments. Anybody, Kelly?
Nope, nobody at this time.
Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Is this your last meeting with us?
Oh,
It is.
I know is this your last meeting, Lisa, or are you with us next month?
Oh, actually my last day here is June 11th. So if I'm still invited to the next Public Works meeting, and I'll be here.
Okay, well then I'll say
just
something.
hang out with you guys.
Okay, well, I'll say something
At the
that
next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll say something at the next meeting. But
All right.
this one's over anyway. So okay, good.
Thank you, everybody.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, all.
Bye.
All right.